Hi, how's it going everyone? Been a while, it's been 2 weeks since I last uploaded. Needed a break, I feel refreshed, brand new backdrop, brand new banner. Hope you all like it. Got plenty to be discussing and preparing for. I thought the best way possible to come back was to do an early. I'm going to do a final one the week the season does actually start, but an early Premier League prediction, because I thought that is the perfect way to flex the fact that Nottingham Forest are promoted, because I can do that video. Don't normally talk about Forest in that video because we haven't been in that division, but believe it or not, we are now. So just thought I'd remind you all. Before we do get into the actual video, as I mentioned, brand new backdrop, I need to shout out Rads Gallery. This is not sponsored at all. I just really rate what they do. They're all over Forest social media a lot, so if you want any kind of high quality print, whether it's these or others, or it's not even just Forest stuff actually, to do other teams and other topics, then I do highly recommend them. And I'm not going to show you just yet because it's off topic, but this wall is also different. You may have seen it if you watched Door a few weeks ago. I was on and you would have seen my other backdrop. So we'll start with the top four. In fact, no, forget the top four, they're irrelevant. Let's start with the biggest team in this division, Nottingham Forest. I think we're going to do alright, nothing too spectacular. Honestly, 14 to 17 is where I think we're going to come. I could see us being higher, only based off the squad depth currently, you would probably say we're going to get relegated, but we're linked with so many players, and I know full well we are going to sort that out. And this is the difficulty of the fact that we had 5 loan players, immediately. We've got an issue there with having to replace them, and all of them, maybe besides Jed Spence, because that's all up in the air, and maybe James Garner, they're not going to come back. Iawani is the one that's going to replace Davis, 17 million, record signing, very similar kind of player to Davis. Big, strong, physical, runs at the defence, holds at the ball very well. We could be getting Harry Toffolo to replace Max Lowe, and then Morgan Gibbs-White to replace Philip Zinckernagel. They are all better than the ones we initially had. I think we should do another newly promoted team next, Fulham. Call me unoriginal, but I'm just basing it off history and the fact that every single time they come up, they tend to be a bit better than Norwich when they come up, but ultimately they still get relegated. And I do feel this, they are things that do make me think maybe they could survive because of Marco Silva, who isn't a spectacular manager in the Premier League, but he's probably the best manager that they've had when it comes to approaching Premier League survival compared to previous seasons. And then as well as that, Mitrovic, he struggled in the past in the Premier League, but given the fact that he scored 50 goals last season in the Championship, that is quite an insane number. I do desperately think that they do need to get someone else that is arguably better than Mitrovic, because if Mitrovic gets injured, they are relegated without a shadow of a doubt. But even if he doesn't get injured, there's a very good chance they're going to get relegated. So they need a star striker, in my opinion, to help him out. Manchester United, really irrelevant small club, in my opinion. They're not. They're just really badly run. Erik ten Hag is a fantastic appointment when it comes to the manager. Took them way too long to actually do that. Only, this is the thing. Brilliant manager, but unless he is Steve Cooper, I don't see him working miracles with this team that is already 5 players down from last season. Paul Pogba, Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata, Nemanja Matic and Edison Cavani have all left the club for nothing. They are linked with Frankie de Jong, of course, and Yuri Tielemans has been spoken about quite a few times in the past. But ultimately, they need even more than that. And, when you consider that the main man that carries them is Ronaldo and he's about 50 at this stage, I don't think it's sustainable. Leeds, they're going to lose Rafinha, they're going to lose Phillips. They were pretty awful last season and they were dead lucky that they survived. So unless they can somehow replace their 2 prized assets in Phillips and Rafinha, then I think they're a little bit screwed in my opinion. Crystal Palace. I like what Palace are doing. I really do. They've got a good model going on with Patrick Vieira. They're signing young, exciting players with potential. I do feel that compared to previous seasons, Palace do have an identity because for several years, Palace had never really looked in any serious relegation danger in the entire time they've been in the Premier League, which is quite a while now. But now they appear to be wanting to try and push for top 10, maybe even Europe, in the not too distant future, which would be pretty mental. Everton, I don't see them improving, quite frankly, because they're going to be, as of yesterday actually, I saw reports that they were going to be losing, obviously, Richarlison to Spurs. It was always going to happen, wasn't it? Ultimately, their squad probably wasn't as bad as where it finished, but that's where it was performing. And I still don't hugely rate Frank Lampard as a manager. Fair play to him for keeping them up, and ultimately they had some great results towards the end of last season against Chelsea and United and Crystal Palace. But overall, it was a dismal season, and they need to do a hell of a lot better. Let's go for a top 4 club, and a club that, even as a neutral, I do find quite exciting. Tottenham. Obviously, we laugh about their so-called glory years under Pochettino when they won nothing, but it is true because they have dropped off since then. They were in the Champions League and doing a very good job in it as well. The last 3 seasons, they have not done that until last season. So ultimately, they are heading in the right direction. They've got a world-class manager at the helm. They're going to be getting Richarlison probably. They've already got Perisic, Basuma, if they can get Kulusevski in permanently, and Jed Spence as well. But they're looking very, very strong, and they ended last season really, really strongly as well. Next up then, Arsenal. I think it's a weird situation with Arsenal because I think they're heading in the right direction, but ultimately I don't really see them going any further than where they actually are currently. And I do think that last season not being in Europe helped them out quite dramatically, and ultimately the fact that they are going to be in it again this year, it's what they wanted. They achieved it. They could have been in the Champions League. They're being very ambitious with their transfer policy because ultimately they're linked with the likes of Gabriel Jesus, Rafinha, and they just basically want to make Brazil's attack at their club because they've already got Martinelli as well. Next up, Leicester. We'll put them, I think, in this category. They ended last season pretty well. Ultimately, it was quite a disappointing year. They did well in the Conference League, and I think it might be a similar story to with Arsenal last season. Maybe not being in Europe will do them some good. They will be aiming to get back into Europe again next season, and they're heading in the right direction. There's still a very, very, very good feel-good factor around Leicester the last several years. But I think the biggest worry for Leicester going forward is replacing Jamie Vardy. Obviously, a phenomenal striker. He's 35. And they've got Daka, they've got Iheanacho, but ultimately they need someone else that's going to really go in there and just grab by the scruff of the neck. Chelsea, a club that really confused me at the moment because I don't really know what their direction is. Before they won the Champions League in 2021, they were on a downward spiral under Lampard. After they won the Champions League, they went on a bit of a downward spiral, not as much as under Lampard, but they were very, very underwhelming, especially at home. They were drawing too many games. Given the fact that their ownership has been all up in the air the last several months, getting a brand new owner in that's worth £4.25 billion, it's not exactly like that's an issue. They've just gone from one absolutely loaded businessman to another. Aston Villa, strange situation with them. They had a bit of an off year last season after losing Grealish. They thought, let's go out and sign 3 players to replace him. That didn't work. They ultimately finished quite underwhelmingly. They've done pretty well in the transfer window so far. They're Coutinho signing permanently, and they've also signed Diego Carlos for 27 million from Sevilla. Brentford, some people are saying that they're going to go down, second season syndrome, but I don't think that. And this is not in order, by the way. I'm not going to switch us all about, but it's just in that region of the table. I'll do it in order when I do the final version. But Brentford, I like what they're doing. The second half of last season was obviously particularly good with Christian Eriksen, and if they can get him back, that is a gigantic coup. And if, Man United are being turned down left, right and centre right now, so honestly, they can get him back, and ultimately, they're looking pretty solid at the moment, Brentford. Okay, on to West Ham. I'm going to put them in this tier. Did very, very well in Europa League last season. Should have really won it, in my opinion. It was quite a strange Europa League last year. They've dropped down to the Conference League this season, which is a bit of a disappointment, but ultimately they had to put all their eggs into the Europa League basket, and it affected them in the league. I think this season they'll be aiming to win the Conference League, and they will be aiming to get European football yet again. Hopefully for them, the Europa League at the very least. Wolves, I put them into the category 14 to 17. I don't really know where their future lies. They appear to be going backwards a little bit. Big players are ultimately going to be leaving. The likes of Ruben Neves continues to be linked with moves away. ultimately last season was really poor, considering the fact that they were actually chasing Europe for quite a bit of it. To end up coming 10th was disappointing, and ultimately I don't really know where what their vision is anymore, because their vision seemingly was to be like a top 8 side, but the last 2 seasons they've not been that. Okay, I've just realised maths. Wolves have to be in this tier. So anyway, moving on. Southampton, don't really see where their future lies. I was incredibly close to putting them into the bottom tier. They're carried by James Ward-Prowse. I don't really have any faith in Ralph Hasenhüttl. 2 back-to-back 15th place finishes. They've got new owners, to be fair to them, £100 million takeover in January, but they're not really looking like Newcastle are, for instance, where they're going all out for everything, quite frankly. Speaking of Newcastle, it's kind of obvious that they've got to go in this tier. They're an incredibly exciting prospect. It's a shame that money is driving it, but that's the way modern football is. And ultimately, I do like what they're doing. They're doing some very smart business. There's Nick Pope, a brilliant goalkeeper from Burnley. Botman is also coming from Lille for £33 million. Matt Targett signed permanently. And you definitely could see them pushing for European football. I mean, last season, the second half of it, they were the 3rd best team in the division on form. So if that doesn't tell you what direction they're going in, I don't think anything does, quite frankly. Okay, I've only got 2 teams in the top 4. We'll put Man City there. We will put them at the front because obviously they're going to win the league. Again, they just signed Erling Haaland. Like, come on. Like, it's just unfair. It's just unfair. Calvin Phillips is going to go there as well. Cucurella's linked with them. The link with just some brilliant players. And if they didn't sign them, I'd still put them first. Speaking of Cucurella, Brighton. I like what Brighton are doing these days. Is that 9, 10, 11, 12, 13? Yes, maths. Brighton, we'll put them a little bit further down. Did great last season, come 9th. But really, you probably would say 9th is about as high as you'd see Brighton and Hove Albion finishing. But ultimately, I don't think they're going to be thinking, right, well, we've reached the summit. This is it. So let's just aim there again. They'll be trying to go as far as possible. And I don't see them getting Europa League or Conference League or anything. But they've definitely got a nice foundation there. Finishing 9th place. They had quite a barren run in the middle of the season. But ultimately, they picked up towards the end and made sure that they finished it very strongly. They have lost Basuma, which is a big loss. And if they do lose Cucurella, then that really, really isn't ideal at all. And that will definitely hinder them quite a bit. 2 more teams. Liverpool obviously going to come second. They have lost obviously Mane, which is quite disappointing for them. They've got Nunez in, who is a fantastic replacement for Mane. I don't know a huge amount about him, but having researched and looked at him, I see why they signed him, because in 85 appearances for Benfica, he scored 48 goals. That is absolutely insane, quite frankly. They've also lost Minamino and Origi, who of course are not on the same level as Mane, but they're going to need to replace both of them, or at the very least one of them. And I've seen rumours, and I think this would be a really, really smart signing, that they could be getting Marco Asensio in from Real Madrid, who got 10 goals last season for Madrid, but he did struggle for regular starts at Madrid last season. He was very in and out of the team. So ultimately, I think if they signed him, that would be a really strong option. And one more team to talk about, Bournemouth. Bottom of the league in my opinion. I might be wrong. Don't think Scott Parker's good enough for this division. He did alright with Fulham in the Premier League, but with Bournemouth, arguably that's even harder to try and keep them up. The signing, Joe Rothwell, is a good signing for free, but Ryan Fredericks just screams mediocrity, and they need to do more than that. Obviously, Solanke did very well in the Championship the last 2 years, but he struggled beforehand. Can he make the step up? And they could survive, because last time they went up, they're not a yo-yo team just yet. It's only the second time they've ever been in the Premier League, but they survived for 5 seasons last time, so why can't they do it again? Anyway, that was my long and early predictions for the Premier League season 2022-2023. I'll do a final version of this come at the start of the season, probably literally like the day before the season starts. I will be doing a Championship early prediction next week probably, and again I'll do a final prediction for the Championship as well. I'm going to be covering both the Premier League and Championship equally, hopefully anyway, this season, because given the fact Forest are now in that division, just thought I'd remind you about that. I think it's only fair that I cover both divisions equally. Hope you've enjoyed this, everyone. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Follow my Twitter and Instagram in the links below. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. I hope you like my new backdrop and also my new banner. And in time, you'll see that backdrop as well. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you very soon.